5 p.m. In the restaurants, you should not be served water in the restaurant unless you ask for it. So those are some of the mandatory, restrictions that we have right now.
We also sometimes hear the word rationing tossed about in relation to our water crisis. What sorts of measures might we be forced into in the future, do you think?
Well, in the early 90s, we had sort of a water rationing program in effect. I think we ought to look at other cities who right now have a little stricter mandatory water usage laws on their books. For instance, Long Beach, it's a little more severe in terms of when you can water your lawns. I think they only allow people to water their lawns on a certain day of the week. Those might be things that we might look at. Also, I think we need to get more serious about having people planting drought-resistant landscaping around their homes and around new developments. I think the days of huge lawns in the front yard and the backyard may be over. We just can't afford to use our water in that way if there's going to be a time when we have a real shortage.
Well, you're certainly getting the message out here, but how do we educate everybody about water conservation? And not just in the city of Los Angeles, because it's a regional issue. I know you consider neighborhood councils a tremendous resource.
I do, and that's one of the things I asked for during that city council meeting. Was I really wanted to get DWP to begin working more closely with neighborhood councils. Neighborhood councils are all over the city. We have one in almost every community in the city of Los Angeles. Just like we have educated them about emergency response. We have a lot of those people who are CERT trained, so in case of a major emergency, they would be able to be one of the first responders. I think in the same way, we get neighborhood councils really understanding this water crisis that we are experiencing and see if they might not take that message to their homes, to their schools, to their businesses, to their churches, and make sure that everyone is aware we just can't use water or waste water like sometimes we've been accustomed to in the past.
Well, we're also putting more demands on the same water. Urban sprawl and growth contributing to the demand on our water supply. What changes might we see in the future for example, planning and land use management?
Well, I think we just can't be anymore approve, development plans that don't really address water usage. I don't think we should be approving plans for any kind of density or any kind of growth anywhere without really looking at how that's going to, take a demand on our water supply. I think we should start looking at purple pipes more seriously, and I think we ought to maybe look at charging developers a fee for water usage or to encourage purple pipe usage. Just like we charge them for Quimby fees, we charge them for parks. So this might be something we look at in the future.
Quimby fees, of course, are those fees that developers have to pay that would go into green lands within development areas. But you mentioned purple pipe water. Is this recycled water?
Yeah, purple pipes is just the notion that you can have two separate pipes going in and out of either a house or a business. One is for recycled water and the other is not recycled. And there's a lot of uses for recycled water. In fact, there's almost every possible use for recycled water. We ought to be using more for landscaping. We ought to be using more to run businesses. I know down in the refineries in the harbor area, they use water for their business. We ought to make that recycled water as opposed to, fresh water.
You mentioned at the very beginning when you introduced the whole topic before the Tuesday session, in your list of agencies that would be involved here, you mentioned the Bureau of Sanitation, and I assume that's where the BOS comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need to get them looking at ways that they can also begin to, use recycled water and have conservation within their own department.
One of the things that concerned people, of course, I think this is also sometimes called gray water, is the possibility that it might not be as clean as other water. Sometimes water that's been treated and cleaned up and filtered and all that is actually cleaner than some of the water that we otherwise encounter. Well,
we in America sort of need to get over that kind of ick feeling about recycled water, because that is absolutely right. Really, recycled water, by the time it's gone through the system, actually is pure water than when it started. There are places in other countries where water is used 6 times before it's finally, let go. And we need to get over that feeling that we cannot use recycled water in a lot of ways. Once it goes through the system, it is absolutely pure, it's drinkable, and we need to get to a place where we understand how we can't just continue to use water one time.
Well, to get to where the legislative rubber meets the road, you introduced several motions on Tuesday for the Council to consider. Can you briefly go over those motions and the results you expect?
Well, one of them was I really wanted DWP to work with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to see how they might reach out to neighborhood councils to get them this message about conservation. I also asked the department to have Orange County come in and make a presentation because Orange County has done a very successful Purple Pipe recyclable water program, and I think we always ought to take a look at other areas to see who's done it better than we've done it. I also asked for the department to come back and tell me how is that Purple Pipe program with the refineries going, because I've really asked for that to almost be a program that we mandate with the refineries. They ought to be using recycled water for the work that is done in a refinery. I want to know if that's happening. I want to know the status of that. And I also wanted to know what are all the technologies that we have right now and we can use in the city to capture runoff water. There's these permeable cement or materials that we can begin using on our streets, on playgrounds and parks, so that when the water goes down, we capture it in our aquifer underneath the ground, and it doesn't just run off. So I wanted to know, what are these technologies? Is the City of Los Angeles up to date on everything we can do to conserve, to recycle, and to capture the water that we have in the City of Los Angeles?
From what you just said, I'll bet you just triggered some questions of people watching saying, wait a minute, when it rains in Los Angeles, and it used to rain and probably will rain again, all that water goes into the LA River and the other concrete little canyons that we put for rainwater, and it just flows out to the ocean and we lose it.
Right. There's actually new material, permeable material, that the water will seep through, and we can actually capture it and reuse it as opposed to having it run off into the ocean.
Critically important issue, and we thank you for coming in. District 15 Council Member Janice Hahn, thanks for joining us on Council Week in Review.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
And to learn more about water conservation and what you can do, log on to ladwp.com. You can listen to City Council meetings as well as committee and commission meetings on the telephone by using the city's council phone system. In the downtown area, dial 213-621-CITY. In West LA, dial 310-471-CITY. For the San Pedro area, dial 310-547-CITY. And in the San Fernando Valley, dial 818-904-9450. Just follow the recorded instructions for the meetings you want to hear. And we invite you to address the Los Angeles City Council on any item on the council agenda, as well as during public comment. You may come downtown to City Hall or go to the Van Nuys City Hall and participate via video teleconferencing. Remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Council Week in Review can be seen Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending October 10th, 2008. On behalf of Frank Ulloa and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
California is earthquake country. We're all in this together.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 14th, 2008. We're here in the John Ferraro Council Chamber, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. We meet the first Friday at the Van Nuys City Hall, and it is now 10:10. We are supposed to be in our chairs at 10 a.m., and I want to thank those council members who were here on time. Council members Cardenas, Huizar, Labange, Wesson, and certainly not least Mr. Zine. But we are still awaiting council members, let's see, Mr. Alarcon, Ms. Gruhl, Mr. Smith are not expected today because of the fires. We do and also have an excuse from Ms. Perry. That leaves us just with a bare quorum if we can have Mr. Rosendahl join us immediately, Mr. Parks join us immediately, and Ms. Hahn join us immediately. I want to welcome our viewers on Channel 35, where we are broadcast live each council meeting and also rebroadcast in the evening. We want to say at the outset that our thoughts are with all the families and individuals who are caught in the midst of the fires in North San Fernando Valley. And we want to thank our firefighters, our police officers, and other city personnel who have literally been the front line of these fires and keeping those communities safe 24 hours around the clock right now, and we thank them for their service and the coordination as well from some of our neighboring cities that have assisted us, and the county, of course, which was the first lead agency when the fires broke out in the northeast San Fernando Valley. We want to thank Glendale and Burbank, Ventura County, and all the others who have been a part of fighting these very treacherous fires. We are not only on television right now, but you can always use your computer to listen in on lacity.org, which has streaming webcasts of our council meetings and archived footage of our past council meetings. Finally, you can also use your phone to listen in by calling Council Phone, a number which allows you to listen in to the council meetings or committee meetings. That number is 213-621-CITY, 213-621-CITY. We are still awaiting those three council members, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Parks, and Mr. Rosendahl. If I can ask the sergeants at arms to please assist in finding out where those individuals are. It is now 15 after the hour. We usually cancel the meeting if we don't have enough members by this time. Given the situation with the fires, we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if we can establish a quorum. Again, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Parks, and Ms. Hahn. Thank you. We also are awaiting Mr. Reyes. If you'll please make your way down as soon as possible. Thank you. Mr. Reyes. That brings us to 8. We're checking in at other council offices. If we don't have we have 9 with Ms. Hahn now. We are just awaiting Mr. Parks and Mr. Rosendahl. If we don't get them in the next couple of minutes, we'll cancel the meeting. Thanks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Gardner, School, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right. Ms. Perry moves. Mr. Zine seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
And Mr. Cardenas moves. Ms. Hahn seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well. Next order of business.
Mr. President, this is Tuesday, and there's a flag salute.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? If I can ask everybody to please rise for our salute to the flag. Thank you.
Raise your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Since kindergarten, I have to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. If we can run through the agenda, please.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is a street lighting district item, notice for public hearing. Council should continue the hearing and present the ordinance on November 4th.
Okay, any objection? If not, we'll continue the hearing and present the ordinance on the 4th. Next items, please.
Items 2 through 6 are street lighting district ordinances, notice for public hearing.
Okay.
There is
do we
a
have
card on
cards?
item 4.
Item 4, we'll call that just for cards from the public. We'll open and close the other public hearings. Any specials? 2 through 6? 2 through 6. We do expect Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Rosendahl, so why don't we hold those in case we get 12 members. Next items, please.
Items 7 and 8 are items for which public hearings have been held. On item 7, the city clerk reports that ballot results as follows: 98.4% in favor, 1.6 opposed. Therefore, the ordinance confirming the assessments can be adopted. However, there is an amending motion that is in the works right now. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Okay, let's hold that on the desk for the amending ordinance. Next item, please.
That would leave item 8.
Okay. Anybody wishing to call 8 special? If not, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on 8 and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Next items, please.
Items 9 through 14 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay. Do we have cards on any of those?
Yes, Mr. President. There are cards on 10, 11, 12, and 14.
Okay. We'll call those special for cards from the public and open and close the hearings on 9 and 13. Anybody wishing to call 9 or 13 special? Mr. Cardenas? 10 and 11 also for Mr. Cardenas. Okay. Not on 9 and 13. Let's prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Come back for our general public comment. This is a time for items that are not on the agenda, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the council. Our first speaker is Donna Pearman out in the San Fernando Valley. Thank you for your patience and good morning.
Good morning. Anyway, I wanted to say something to Councilman Rosendahl, but maybe you can tell him, though I love his passion about the water conservation, I don't believe in having only desert plants and no grass. That's not good for every yard. Where there's no grass, there's foxtails and can get in a dog or cat's paws. Grass is also helpful if they feel sick. I say keep the lawn. Besides, I thought council was making everything green. Now, I want to say it's amazing that I'm here today because I'm dedicated to my city. I was fine on Friday at Spring Street, but Saturday morning I woke up and couldn't walk properly. It's like my brain didn't remember how. Went to the hospital, stayed Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Actually, I felt better when I arrived at the hospital, but I had to stay for checkup, possibly mini strokes. I feel better now. But I'm sure hope Obama, if elected, will fix our health plan. They made me stay and charged me $250, where I had to put on my charge card because I didn't have that much. I want to tell the people, if what looks too good to be true, it's not true. We have no reassurance that our gang tax will help. We have no reassurance that B is not CRA generated. Vote no on the half-cent sales tax. We need better local services in the valley, not more rail or subway. Can really trust subway. if there's another big earthquake hits. Our city council's already having enough revenue gathering ideas at our expense. When we have like trash tax and all their meters going up, and I heard one spot over there with the parking meter permit where it went up from $15 to $26 in a short period of time over in Councilman Weiss's area. So I'm saying let's stop trying to generate and steal from the middle class, and let's get it from the rich people who are, don't give them all those quirks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perriman. Rick Nightingale, also in Van Nuys, is our next speaker. After that, we'll hear from Daniel Wright here. Good morning.
Good morning. Rick Nightingale. I'm here still about the all the money where we think we're going to get. I wish the Daily News would turn around and print exactly what the council people, how they feel and how they would vote on this housing situation that we're putting at $100 million, and now you want $200 million. I was really shocked when I turned around. I realized police department costs a lot of money, but it's over $1 billion now. That's 1/7 of the budget is $7 billion, and we're paying $1 billion. And an average police officer gets $8,000, excuse me, for overtime. Boy, I don't know where you think your people are going to get the money. And then last week I read about the parks, that we're supposed to have the parks and that's the only place, since this is like an asphalt jungle, and there's not many parks for the kids to be playing in, and then they're cutting back on them. Give me a break. There's just nothing for them to do. This is one reason why we have such of these problems, because there's no place for them to go, because you want so much housing for all the different people that can't afford it and so forth, and you want another $20 million. We're going to have more police officers, and then you turn around and cutting back on the parks. So that means it turns around that they won't be open for them to turn around and go to and have protection and so forth. It's just unbelievable. You people are going to have to do something regarding this, and I'd like to know where Councilman Smith and that stands, because he's on the budget committee for that, and I hope that the Daily News will turn around and print to what these people feel like, the council, how they will vote and how they do this and that, so we know how they feel, because a lot of them are coming up for election, and if you are in favor of all this, I think you should be voted out like I said before. You're going to have to cut back. You had 700 people who were going to be laid off, and 2 got laid off because they transferred. That's not a transfer. It was just an open spot someplace else, and you're still on that same budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Wright is our next speaker here in council chambers. After that will be Sandy Franks. Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning. Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard, LA, on behalf of the Friends of the Southwest Museum Coalition, on the web at www.friendsofthesouthwestmuseum.com, or join the debate at www.blackhatblogwordpress.com. Council members, you have heard some testimony about the cross-subsidy from the taxpayers of the city to the Autry. Maybe you're thinking the Autry needs these millions of dollars of cross-subsidy since, as I have outlined in previous testimony, the Autry has falsely claimed for the last 8 years that it has $100 million of endowment, when, on the day of the merger with the Southwest Museum, the Autry had less invested endowment than the Southwest itself. However, that thinking would be wrong. We now know that the $100 million remains in the control of Mrs. Jackie Autry and will not be paid to the Autry Museum until Mrs. Autry passes on. This means that while Mrs. Autry still controls one of the largest personal fortunes in America, the museum ekes along every year dependent upon Mrs. Autry's check for about 1/3 of the Autry's operating budget, about $6 million a year. In 1985, Mrs. Autry and Jean convinced this council that they should be given 11 acres of Griffith Park for $1 per year. How much is that land worth? In its 2001 annual report, Autry valued the fair market value of this contribution from city taxpayers at $550,000 per year. If we use that figure as an average fair market value of the lease over the 50-year period, the taxpayers of Los Angeles are subsidizing the Autry Museum to the tune of $27.5 million. Last Saturday, Mayor Villaraigosa announced that this city faces a $400 million budget deficit next year. And the question that this council is going to have to ask itself soon is whether or not you're going to continue that $550,000 a year subsidy of the Autry, or do you need a new solution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Sandy Franks. As you come up, Ms. Franks, if you could just wait 2 seconds. We have 12 members now. If we can open the roll on 2, 3, 5, and 6, now that we have 12 members. And close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Go ahead, Ms. Franks. Thank you for your patience.
All right, my name is Sandy Franks. I'm Cayuga Cherokee, originally from Oklahoma. I'm the cultural advisor and program advisor for the Los Angeles School District American Indian Education Program. As you know, we have the largest Indian population here living in our streets of LA. We have the largest school district also, so to reach our students, they're so diversified and spread out throughout the city that the Autry, we're in support of the expansion of the Autry for our students. Our families can attend programs that the Autry offers. Also, we have an annual art show that is held at the Gene Autry Museum for our Indian students. We also have an Indian Student Recognition Day that the Autry hosts us for our Indian students. Our students here so many times that they're the lowest of the lowest. They have the highest alcoholism, the highest suicide, the highest this, the highest all negative. The Autry gives us the opportunity to support our students and to be proud of their heritage and their cultural pride, as well as furthering their academic skills, so they could be positive enforcement to our society. So we're in total agreement with other Indian community that we want the expansion of the Autry Museum.
Our next speaker is John Walsh.
Good morning to the 35,000 people who watch this on cable. HollywoodHighlands.com. I only have 2 minutes here. Go to HollywoodHighlands.com and go to Hollywood Confidential. This newest blog is not vituperation. We are breaking a national news story, a world news story. In fact, Mayor Villaraigosa has been shunned by Barack Obama. An agreement was made several months ago that he would appear in his commercials in certain key target states, that Antonio would. Then, when the FBI from the Bay Area started investigating City Hall, it's in the LA Times, it was leaked by the FBI, the investigation is not just on Rocky Delgadillo. The investigation is on the mayor of the city. You don't go after Tonto unless you go after the Lone Ranger. Now, everybody knows it. The LA Times knows it. And we had a break. Richard Katz told me, and go to our website if you want to find out. He said there will be no commercials with Antonio and Barack. If Antonio and Barack appear together any place in the United States and a picture is taken of them, Drudge and the rest of the right-wing blogs will go right after Antonio, right after the FBI investigation, which may involve Morello, which may involve Nestor Lopez, which involves a number. Folks, every reporter knows it. Everybody up there knows it. Garcetti got off. He left because he knew he was going to say this, and he was afraid it would go on YouTube because, as you know, Garcetti has a major role in Barack Obama's campaign. I'm going to vote for Barack Obama once or twice, maybe 3 times, and he is hiding. Garcetti is hiding like his father did, Gil Garcetti, when he had a bad decision on OJ.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walsh. Our next speaker is Arnold Sachs. Mr. Sachs. After that, our next speaker will be Damian Goodman, and you can queue up to come and speak after Mr. Sachs.
Good morning, you criminals. Welcome back. Budget crisis for the city.
Madam President, he should be addressing the council members.
I am addressing council members.
Not as criminals. It's not within the decorum of this chamber.
Well, when you break the rules, Mr. City Attorney, when you don't follow the law, Mr. City Attorney, that's criminal, Mr. City Attorney. And that's what happens here, Mr. City Attorney. You break the rules, you don't follow the laws, you don't follow the rules. That's what criminals do. So when you explain how the rules are different for the council and the public and how you can maintain them, then I won't call them criminals. Thank you. City is in financial crisis. This story from the Los Angeles Bolton Civic Center news source. Residential trash collection was boosted from $11 a month to $26. The new fees generated $137 million, but the city hired only 400 more cops. They cost $42 million. So where did almost $100 million go? That was prior to the city just raising the rates from $26 to $39 a month. So in addition to the $100 million, you have over another $137 million missing. Total, $237 million. Budget forecast crisis, $400 million. You're in a hole $400 million, but you have $237 million unaccounted for. Can somebody please explain where the money went? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? Oh, that's right. The public's paying the bill. Good news is the government high-tech security is on the job. They've just invented new security measures.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. Our next speaker will be Damian Goodman. Thank you very much. Mr. Goodman, you can please come to the lectern. After Mr. Goodman will be Suzanne McGran Paisley.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Damian Goodman representing the Fix Expo campaign, a collaboration of South LA community groups with the support of UTLA, Parent Collaborative, and the 4 directly impacted neighborhood councils. The South LA community issues with the Expo line can be boiled down to 3 words: safety, community, and justice. Safety. Street-level crossings are not safe, will lead to thousands of accidents, countless deaths. Community. The street-level crossings the altered traffic cycles, the crossing gates will impact our traffic adversely. The noise impacts of the train will disrupt our community. The street closures will divide our community. Injustice. All of the above adverse impacts will be felt in the majority, minority, and or poor communities along Expo Line Phase 1, while the one affluent and majority Caucasian community of Culver City will not feel any of those impacts because that city council stood up and said no street-level crossings in our boundaries. But the issue is also about political betrayal and political corruptness. How could council members stand in opposition of their neighborhood councils and community groups? In the case, Madam Chair, of Bernard Parks, we have our answer. In May of this year, we highlighted over $21,000 that he's taken from MTA and Expo Line contractors in violation of state bill or state law 130051.20. Madam Chair, I'm coming here today to tell you that number has increased to $52,300. $18,000 from Tudor Saliba, $6,000 from Lowe, which is building $1 billion project at the North Hollywood Transportation Station, and forgive me, and $18,000 from Kasdan, which stands to benefit from a density bonus if the Expo line designed for Phase 2 is at the Sepulveda Station. Ma'am, there's political corruptness in this body, and we have begun asking the oversight bodies for investigations into Mr. Parks, forgive me, and for you, Madam, because you have taken money from Jim Harris, haven't you? On December 17, 2007, you took money from an Expo Line contractor as well. Thank you.
Next speaker is Suzanne McGran Paisley. Is Ms. Paisley here? Are you Suzanne?
Yes, I am.
All right.
I'm here regarding my brother, who probably most of you read about in the newspaper, who was homeless for many, many years. And last week, 2 young men pulled up and poured gasoline on him and lit him up with a flare. And I think that it is not just our family that is concerned about this kind of crime, and hope that we can get the city support in addressing it. But it's there's very little that we can do to affect our economy or affect the fires, but as a community, as local people, there are things that we can do on a case-by-case situation, and so many people have written us about the situation of the outrage that someone who simply sat on a sidewalk for 20-something years would be so cruelly treated to just simply drive up and douse them with gasoline and set them on fire. And there are so many people who are concerned, and many of us here walk the streets of downtown. I know I do, and we see homeless every single day, and they almost become part of the landscape. We don't even notice them. And based on Councilman Labange's advice and the police department, I understand that there's some consideration for a reward at a future time, but I just encourage you as council members to please not forget this incident and let it be a breaking off point that we start taking care of the homeless as it occurs, not as a big issue, but just every moment, every little incident. And I hope you will not forget him and consider this if it comes up in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And on behalf of the entire body, I'd like to extend our sympathies to you for the loss of your brother. And I hope at some point we are able to offer a reward. Mr. Labange would like to say a few words, and Ms. Hahn would like to say a few words, too.
I just wanted to stand and say, just how deeply, deeply sorry we are for the tragic ending to your brother's life. And I was very touched by your words in the paper, and to realize the struggle that you and your family have had with this issue of a family member, and even you who clearly loved him and supported him and would bring your children to visit with him, and on Thanksgiving you would bring food and clothes. I mean, it was a very touching article to know that even with the love that he had from you, it still is a very challenging situation with enormous obstacles. But just please know that we are so sorry, and no one deserves to have an end to their life to happen like that. We hope that those who perpetrated this unspeakable crime against your brother will be brought to justice. That won't bring your brother back, but it clearly needs to happen. Your brother needs to have that kind of justice in his life. But know that we're very, very sorry for what happened.
Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Reyes. Okay.
Yeah. Words cannot express the horror and the sympathy that there needs to be. It sets the absolute issue in perspective. Many of our homeless have problems, mental problems, drug and alcohol addiction problems. We in the city have now created a committee on homelessness so that we can actually get focused. What I'd like to see happen, frankly, is there's hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in silos in the governmental bureaucracy over Prop 63, which is mental health money. We've got to get it into the community so we can connect psychiatric social workers with people and get that happening so we can make a difference. And we're working on it here, and we're with you 100%.
Mr. Reyes, did you still wish to speak?
I just rise to also give my sympathies and to know that the community embraced him and supported him and was there with him does speak to the goodness in our city. But I also know that there is some evil out there, and we will do everything we can to support. We know we need to follow the lead of the officers. When the detectives tell us that it's good timing to do this award, I'm certain this body will support in any way we can. But thank you.
Oh, don't leave yet. Mr. Garcetti wants to say a few words to you, and then we'll close with Mr. Labange.
Absolutely. Just one very brief thing as well. Of course, when we heard this, our hearts broke as well. And know that you're not alone. We had attacks consistently on people who happen to be homeless simply because they're homeless. We had about 5 or 6 homeless individuals right around that area in East Hollywood and Hollywood who were attacked. Some of them were shot at. Thankfully, none of them lost their lives, but some of them were deeply, deeply injured. I think that when this settles down and we have justice on this particular case, maybe one of the things we can look at with you is whether or not hate crimes which right now have to do with ethnicity and gender and sexual orientation, people who are targeted just because they're homeless. It has nothing to do with their actions. It is in the same category. And until we send a message that there should be elevated penalties for this sort of stuff, this will continue on. But our deepest sympathies to you, and we're so sorry for your loss. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mr. Labange.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Members, Susan, thank you. It takes a lot of strength to come here. As I told you, I was out of the city, but I saw over the national news of this incident, not knowing exactly where it was and how a horrible incident took place in our city. I visited the site this morning, and I want to tell you there may have been 7 or 8 people of all walks of life, reflecting Los Angeles, stopping to pay homage to your brother. His story, 55 years old, born and raised at Highland Park, worked at the Ambassador Hotel and was friend to many. The detectives are working very hard on the case. When they give us the information, as Detective Sergeant Ito said earlier, that it's necessary, we'll move forward with that type of reward motion. We will work with you and ask the other institutions in the community work with you. Let you know that your brother was loved. And at the conclusion of this meeting today, members, I'll ask that we all stand and adjourn in memory of John McGrahm for his life that he led. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today to speak to us. Tracy Stanhoff.
Hello, council people, and I'm Tracy Stanhoff. I'm the president of the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of California, which is headquartered here. Our statewide headquarters are here in Los Angeles, just down the road. I'm recently a former chief of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Indian Nation of the great state of Kansas, but I'm here in California. This is where I live because my parents were relocated here during the 1950s, so they've been in Los Angeles residents for many, many years. I'm here today to express my support of the Autry National Center's expansion at Griffith Park. You have to understand, this is very important to the American Indian community. And why I say that is because over the past decade that I've been involved with the Southwest Museum and the Autry National Center and the leadership and the staff over there, they've been very ingratiating to the community. They've involved themselves in the community in a way that's been untouched by many other institutions here and actually the city of Los Angeles and the state of California. We've made our relationship with them to the level that we have many tribal leaders now on their stewardship committee for the artifacts. We have many urban leaders on their stewardship committee for the Indian artifacts and the cultural preservation that they have and programs going on over at the center. And it's become really one of the highlights and shining stars of the actual all over the nation's American Indian community as far as cultural preservation of our language, culture, dance. We have our annual powwow there. I also serve as the vice president of the Southern California Indian Center. And you must realize, LA is the home, and I'm sure you do realize, of the most American Indians in the country. Nowhere else do we have this concentration of folks. And this is very important to us. So a lot of the folks in the tribes, I know for myself coming from a tribe from the Midwest, but being a Los Angelino, being born here, we take, we need them to take care of the artifacts because once they leave home for my tribe, we don't want them back. And so with the expansion, that'll really help.
Thank you very much, ma'am. All right, that concludes our public comment period. Madam, or Mr. Clerk, what is the next item?
Item 4 was called special for cards from the public.
Mr. Sachs, Mr. Arnold Sachs.
Yes, good morning, you criminals. Item 4. It's good to see the Mid-City Expo line has made its appearance again in front of the City Council. After all, they're getting over $7 million this year, over $7 million next year, probably over $8 million, a total of $35 million for the Mid-City Expo line, which under no legislation, under no paperwork, under no MTA bylaws, under no contract agreements, under nothing exist except here in City Council chambers. So if you have a Mid-City Expo line, you must have a Mid-City Expo line lighting area? Do you have a Mid-City Expo line baseball team? And maybe a Mid-City Expo line football team that you have to fund? And maybe a Mid-City Expo line arena that needs to be built? And maybe Mid-City Expo line advertising that can go out to this, that can be placed on a billboard. We could sell that Mid-City Expo line advertising on a billboard. Maybe make more than $2 million even. What is the Mid-City Expo lighting zone? Where is it located? It says Mid-City Exposition Light Rail Transportation 18th Street to 23rd Street Lighting District. Please, we have the chair of the Mid-City, the Exposition line. We have the person responsible for the naming of the Expo line. Fought in MTA headquarters for the hearing regarding exposition.
Excuse me, Mr. President, this is an item regarding a street lighting district. He's off topic.
Mr. President, the lighting district is Mid-City Exposition Light Rail Transit, LRT. I'm trying to find out, we have people here who are paramount in the naming of the Expo line.
Thank you, sir. We'll see if we can get you those
Without
answers. We'll see if we can get you those answers, okay? Thank you. Damian Goodman is our next speaker.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Speaking of the lighting district would be great if it could light a below grade or above grade in that portion. There are many issues, at least with the Flower Street portion of the Expo line of which this lighting district is being built. The first is that it has contraflow running, which is confusing to motorists, in that they believe that cars, when they're running on one side of the street on a one-way street, are to be going in one direction. It is for this reason, which was identified by MTA and other authorities, that it is a problem. It's the reason in the existing Blue Line portion, of which some of this district includes, in that 0.6 miles, just a little over half a mile, there have been 153 accidents in 18 years. It's the most accident-prone section of any light rail line in the country. So I would encourage that maybe as a condition of this lighting district, Mr. City Attorney, that there be some requirement to eventually grade separate this portion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That will close our public comment on item 4. Any members wishing to be heard on 4? If not, let's open the roll on the lighting district. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please. Do we have the amending motion yet?
The amending motion has not been circulated just yet.
Let's go to 10 then.
Item 10 was called special for cards, and I believe Mr. Cardenas also wanted to speak on that.
Okay, we have one card on number 10, John Walsh.
John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.com, Hollywood Confidential. Check it out. We are going, incidentally, here we're talking about gasoline prices. Gasoline price. Well, you know, the answer to everything is vote for Measure R. It has $1 billion in there for Metrolink to pay off for the 25 people they were killed. When you vote for this, and you're not going to vote for this, you're going to vote against it, as all the unions say in their new radio commercials, vote against all bond measures. We are in a depression. We are in a depression. Vote no on Proposition Everything. We cannot afford it. And the gasoline prices here, ladies and gentlemen, just go to HollywoodHighlands.com and you will find out, incidentally, about the deal with the devil between Mr. Garcetti, Barack Obama.
He is off topic.
I'm off topic. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Incidentally, I just want to point out that we have somebody here from the city attorney office that just watches people like me. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now,
sir,
gasoline prices are out of control. If you want, and almost nobody is using the MTA. This year, MTA ridership went down 4% as of June 30th compared to the year before. In fact, Nobody uses it except poor people like me or people who cannot drive. And you know what? I'm not off topic at HollywoodHighlands.com, where you'll have, incidentally, an expose on Eric pretty soon and on Tom because the LA Times is essentially going out of business.
Sir, we have general public comment where you can say this as much as you want, but right now we're supposed to talk about the gasoline. Thank you. No? Thank you. That will close our general public comment for that. Sir, if you could please not be disruptive to the meeting. Thank you. And if we can please call on Mr. Weezar. I'm sorry, Mr. Cardenas called it special, and then Mr. Weezar. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. Could I have somebody from General Services come forward, please? Could you
wait a second, Mr. DeClue? I thought we just said goodbye to you.
Last chance.
One more time. Last bite of the apple. All right.
Last chance for us to get at him. Good morning. I think it's important for people to understand that when it comes to things that are talked about nationally, such as gas prices, things of that nature, it's important for people to understand how that affects us, not only at home, but how it affects us in the government. So first of all, I'd like to get the department to actually brief us and tell us where we stand relative to the gas prices, the ways they've risen over the last few years, and also some of the mechanisms that we're utilizing in order for us to offset those price increases, if at all possible. Secondly, what we're doing as far as our fleet and whether or not we're consuming more petroleum per unit now or as a city, or we're actually consuming less. Are we getting more bang for our buck or not? Where do we stand on that?
With regards to the increasing gas prices, in 05-06, the price of unleaded gasoline was $2.44 a gallon. In 06-07, we were at $2.58 a gallon. In 07-08, we were at $3.05 a gallon, and at the writing of this report, we were at $3.61. So as you can see, the price of gasoline has increased quite a bit over the last few years. What the Department of General Services has done in order to mitigate the cost of gasoline is we've instituted several programs. For instance, the fuel efficiency, the purchase of fuel-efficient vehicles. We've also worked with the mayor's office to do the fleet reduction program. And in addition to that, we've also instituted a preventive maintenance program through fleet. With regards to specific consumption, we've also instituted several programs that actually look at individual vehicles and determine how much fuel they're using. And we've instituted something called the strict odometer program, which actually requires that each person getting fuel puts in the correct odometer so that we can actually track how much fuel each individual vehicle is using. So the department has done quite a bit to track the amount of fuel usage with respect to how the city runs their fleet.
So what you just described is one of the issues that we're facing with the city, or making sure that we do something about, is making sure that there's no abuse of the use of vehicles and the overconsumption of fuel.
That's correct. And in addition to the strict odometer program, we've also instituted something called a two-site visitation rule, which only allows a vehicle to receive fuel twice in a 24-hour period. So in addition to that, we've put together a task force, which includes each individual department and representatives from those departments to review reports that GSD has produced and determine whether or not those reports can be used for their operations.
Now, we do have safeguards. We certainly don't want these safeguards to get in the way of service. For example, right now as we speak, we have firefighters and that department and the police department working 24 hours when it comes to the fires that are going on as we speak right here in the city of Los Angeles. There are mechanisms where somebody can, in a situation like that, still access the pump as many times as necessary so they can stay out there and provide the service we require, certainly when it comes to emergency service, correct?
That is correct, especially for police and fire. We've actually put in safeguards for all of our public safety vehicles to be able to access the fuel as often as they need to.
But we still track their access.
That's correct.
It's not like they get to access it because they're firefighters or police officers or detectives. We still track it, so we still have ways in which to make sure everybody needs to be doing things the right way and making sure that we don't have any abuse, correct?
That's correct. We track the fuel actually by individual vehicle.
Okay. Now, the report states that the fleet was reduced by 900 vehicles. Can you give us an example of what breakdown those 900 vehicles represent?
Tony DeClue with General Services. Those vehicles represent everything from lawnmowers to trash trucks and everything in between. There's a wide variety of vehicles. We identified about 900 of them. We're already about 25% complete in terms of collecting up the vehicles and selling them. I think we've had revenue come in about $600,000 for the first group of vehicles. So we're well on target of meeting these goals. I would like to certainly extend our thanks to all the other operating departments who actually worked with the mayor's office and worked with us to identify the vehicles that were somewhat surplus and help turn them in.
Now, when it comes to the purchase of vehicles, 90+% of the vehicles or all the vehicles go through the Department of General Services when it comes to purchase.
In terms of purchasing, all the vehicles except for fire, police, and the proprietaries. There are about 11,000 vehicles in the fleet right now.
Okay. And how many of those go through GSD, the Department of General Services?
11,000.
11,000.
Right.
And then the only ones that are not part of those 11,000 are what, basically?
Fire department, all the fire trucks and fire equipment, and all the police department vehicles.
So they handle those themselves?
They handle them separately.
Okay. So, for example, the Department of Sanitation is a very unique department. That goes through the General Services Department when it comes to purchase of those vehicles?
Correct.
How about when it comes to the sale of those vehicles?
We work with them on the sale also, both ends.
Okay, so General Services is involved with the purchase and sale of basically those 11,000 vehicles you described?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's important for people to note because for the last few years, a lot has been made of where does the buck stop? Who is in charge of what? Who can we talk to? Who can the public find out information from if they want to get down to the bottom of are we running our government efficiently and effectively? So when it comes to those 11,000 vehicles, the Department of General Services is involved in the purchase and sale, correct?
Correct.
But now when it comes to the basic day-to-day maintenance, is the General Services involved in that as well?
Correct. Let me say, we basically are soup to nuts. We're from cradle to grave on the equipment. We work with the departments when they identify a need. We work with them to identify the right type of equipment to meet their need, whether it be a truck, a pickup truck, a sedan, or whatever. We'll work with the department closely to identify the specs. We actually go out to bid, buy the piece of equipment, deliver it to the operator. We service that equipment during the entire life cycle of the piece of equipment, and then when it gets time for replacement, we develop a replacement program in conjunction with the department and go ahead and sell the vehicles off. We also provide all the fuel, depending on which fuel types, and there's 6 or 7 different major fuel types that we use. So we basically try to provide all of our operating departments a high level of service so they don't have to worry about that piece of equipment. We can take care of that. We handle it well, and then they can focus on their core business, which is trimming the trees, collecting the refuse, etc.
Okay, now let me have one thing clarified, if you don't mind. Now, General Services is involved in the purchase and sale of these vehicles and also the maintenance, but General Services doesn't decide which particular employee sits in the vehicle. That's left up to each department, correct?
Correct. That's the responsibility of the operating department.
Okay, thank you. And now, when it comes to our fleet, how do we stand when it comes to how efficient our fleet is? How are we doing compared to other big cities and municipalities, et cetera, with 11,000 vehicles or what have you? Do we have a very efficient fleet? Are we using alternative fuels? What are we doing there?
We think that we have a very efficient fleet. In terms of technology, we've been at the cutting edge of technology. I think my predecessor, Alvin Blaine, started the alt-fuel program and started us down the road to using hybrid vehicles. We bought the first hybrid vehicles back in 2002 when they weren't in vogue. We now have about 85% of our fleet is in hybrid. In terms of refuse collection and street sweepers, they were our biggest diesel users, and we're far along the way in converting those two fleets to natural gas. We're about 50% with this, with the refuse collection vehicles, and about 60-70% with the sweepers. And we're going through each major vehicle type and working on a transition plan for those.
Where does that put us when it comes to how we rank as far as large municipalities across the country? Are we toward the top, or are we at the bottom? Are we behind other people, or are we ahead of them?
We're right at the top. We're the best municipal fleet in the nation when it comes to hybrids and when it comes to natural gas. And we think we're the best when it comes to just general fleet operations. We've got an outstanding crew, and they do a wonderful job.
Well, it took me 2 questions for you to say the latter. It just goes to show that you're focused more on getting the job done than bragging about what you do. I happen to know that we are, in fact, the most advanced large fleet in the country. So I want to congratulate you on that as well. And that's directly related to this issue, which is how are we doing when it comes to our fuel? With the fact that we are the most advanced when it comes to alternative fuels, when it comes to hybrid vehicles, how are we doing when it comes to how much consumption have we reduced, say, in the last 12 months or what have you, when it comes to the number of gallons of gasoline or what have you in the city, had we not had alternative fuels, had we not had hybrid vehicles, etc.?
Actually, as of last year, we used more than 3 million gallons of LNG, which accumulates about...
Can you speak a little closer to the mic? You said 3 million gallons of LNG. What's LNG?
Liquefied natural gas. It's the gas. It's the fuel that we use in our most of our sanitation trucks right now.
So if we wouldn't have used 3 million gallons last year of LNG, then that would have been similar number of gasoline?
No, actually, out of 2.7 gallons of LNG, we save about 1.3 million gallons, 1.3 gallons of diesel. That comes out to about $500,000 savings. Plus, we get a credit of 50 cents a gallon of LNG from the federal government, which amounts to about $1.5 million direct savings to the city.
Okay, so the fact that we're so aggressive about using LNG consumption rather than gasoline, the people of Los Angeles actually see 50 cents per gallon come back to the city?
To the city. So with the use of LNG, the city save about $2 million alone. And
so the city of Los Angeles probably gets one of the biggest checks in the country from the federal government because of our practices.
We do.
The city has the city of Los Angeles actually has one of the most largest infrastructure of LNG right now. We have 4 sites that where we store LNG.
Okay. Now, but the thing that people need to appreciate, I hope, is that it's not that easy to have LNG readily available like it is gasoline right now. Gasoline is almost available on every other corner across this region. But when it comes to LNG, we had to fortify ourselves with our own tanks, correct? And then on top of that, there's only a limited number of LNG sources, big sources, to make sure that we constantly have that flow, correct?
We currently get liquefied natural gas from Texas. Prior to that, our contract, we got it from Arizona. So currently there's one vendor that we are currently using, and they're actually building a plant in Boron, California. But prior to that, we received LNG from Texas and Arizona.
So it's not like we have 10 sources to choose from?
No. There's
not
actually
even?
There's 2 sources of liquefied natural gas in California.
Only 2 sources?
That's correct.
So we have actually done something that many municipalities find too risky for them to embark on, right?
That's very true.
But have we been successful?
We've been very successful, and one of the ways that we've done that is because we've built very large fueling facilities, so we have enough storage to ensure that our refuse trucks are fueled every day.
Okay, so basically we have enough storage to make sure if for some reason that pipe from Texas shuts off one day, we have a few days or possibly a week or so to go find another source and make sure that our trucks keep running and we keep servicing the people of Los Angeles.
That's correct.
Our trash trucks, are they big consumers of LNG?
They're our largest consumer of LNG. They're basically our only consumer of LNG right now, and then our sweepers are the largest consumer of compressed natural gas, CNG.
Now, if all of a sudden that source from Texas were to be cut off and we didn't have the infrastructure to make sure that we continue to let our trucks keep rolling until we figure out where else to get it from, then Do you think the people of Los Angeles would really care less or more as to why their trash isn't being picked up? Or do you think they just want their trash picked up?
I think they just want their trash picked up.
I think that's a very important point to point out. I want to congratulate the department on your aggressiveness, not only being aggressive, but showing the rest of the country that we can be cleaner, we can do things differently, we can move in the right direction, and we're not about making excuses, because everybody else, I've been in the state legislature, I've been on county boards, we are the most aggressive, and I want to congratulate you on that. Not only are we saving money for the people, the taxpayers of Los Angeles, but we're doing it in a way that's responsible and protecting our services, and at the same time showing the rest of the country that they got to get off of making excuses and just figure out how to get it done. So congratulations, Tony. Congratulations to you. You've been doing it for quite some time. I know you're going to be leaving, but I'm sure we're going to be left in good hands. Thank you very much, Mr. DeClue.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar, and then Mr. Rosendahl are next.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And when we first put in this motion, it was at the time when we saw gas prices inching up every day, and there was concern that we needed to have a discussion about how that would impact our current budget and next year's budget. But I'd like to send this motion to Budget and Finance to have that discussion even further, because as we begin to discuss next year's budget, it'd be important to look at what happened this year and the impact that increase in fuel cost has had on our current budget, as well as talk about a little bit more something that Mr. Cardenas touched upon, which is the trade-offs involved with us getting more vehicles that use LNG versus continuing some of our vehicles using our regular fuel. So that trade-off and the long-term planning that needs to happen, whether we make that decision now or later, if we make it now, we may be saving a lot of money in the future. So that whole discussion, I think, should be had in the Budget and Finance Committee in order for us to get further informed about what direction we'd like to go.
Mr. Huizar, Tony DeClue. We're working very closely with the CEO's office on a fuel management task force. We're going to bring some other departments in, talk about a number of issues in terms of what does our fuel site system look like, how do we buy, how do we purchase the best fuel, can we go in a joint fuel contract with the county and other jurisdictions, is there a possibility that we can hedge, all those issues, and we should be reporting back, I believe, to the Budget and Finance Committee with that project in about probably a month to 60 days. So I would suggest that we could probably handle that in that venue. We're not stopping right now. We're looking at all the other issues, all the other ways that we can to save money in terms of how we get our fuel, how we buy our fuel, how we process the fuel, how the fuel's used, what kind of machinery it's used under, what kind of engines the equipment have so that they get the most fuel-efficient engines. So we're doing a lot of those things, and you should be hearing directly from that Finance Task Force on that issue.
That would be great, and we could probably put these both items together, and this motion also asks for some specific questions that could hopefully be covered in that report as well. And for someone who sits on the Budget and Finance Committee, I know I was a bit surprised to see how much money we spent on fuel, and it'd be great to have the discussion before we even begin next year, the discussions for next year's budget. So it would be very helpful to have that discussion. Okay. Mr. Garcetti? Mr. President, I know there's another speaker, but after the speaker, we could move this item to Budget and Finance.
Yeah, Mr. Cardenas has concurred, so that should be no problem. We have Mr. Rosendahl and Mr. Labange. Mr. Rosendahl.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, Tony, we're going to miss you. I didn't say anything at the big crowd out here the other day, but you're an asset. And I know you're not going to leave. You're too young. You're younger than I am, so you're going to have to do something else and keep active and stay engaged.
You got something in mind?
I do, yeah. Good. Yeah. When you and I did the Shell station the other day, remember that?
Correct.
I mean, that was a major new day. Electrolysis, hitting the water, splitting up H2O, making energy. We got to get off of the damn gasoline for our cars, period. And I would love to see you get engaged with us in a long-run strategy of how we get those opportunities, not only in our state, but throughout the nation. And I know these automobile manufacturers are starting to consolidate. They should have got their act together in the 70s when the Japanese did and go into that direction. Hopefully they will now. So we need you to take some leadership on that LNG business, okay?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. I'd also like to point out that behind me are some outstanding leaders in the department, and you're going to see probably as good or better than I could have done. These folks understand the business, and I think they're going to lead the city in the right direction.
Well, I agree with you on that, too. And let me just ask you this. Buying our fuel with the county and with other groups, have we done enough coordination so that we can get the best price?
Right now, we're getting a better price than any other major jurisdiction around. We're certainly working with those other jurisdictions, and perhaps we can get a better price. And if we can do anything to get them a better price, we're working on that. Right now, we're engaged in discussions with the county. I think Ellen Sant and Bill Fujioka are over there, and they're on the other side. We're trying to work together.
You know, with the election 3 weeks away, with the economy where it is, we've seen the price of gasoline go down, down, down. It's probably going to continue until the election, and maybe it will go back up. Is there an opportunity for us to buy at this lower rate now and lock it in, so if it does go back up again, we're in a good spot?
I think the issue you're getting at is there some kind of hedging we can do? We look at it from this perspective. We like to take the leadership on hedging and those kinds of issues from the CAO's office. They're the financial wizards. We could put fuel in your tank. We could buy it at the best price, but certainly we'd look to them for leadership on that issue.
Okay, well then that's a challenge for them, because I have a sense the politics of the moment that it will continue to go down, take that issue away, you know, from be it Obama or McCain, and that's the time for us to move forward. Do you agree with that?
And actually, that is something that we'll be answering when we go before Budget and Finance. It's part of the working group that the CAO is actually looking at right now. So we will be reporting on hedging and make recommendations as to what the group believes is the best way for the city to go.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you all for what you've done. We are in the right direction. We've done more with our vehicles than anybody else I know of a city of this size in the nation. So hats off to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Cardenas?
Yeah, I think it's important that we clarify for the public. Do we buy gas at the same price that people buy it at the pump, or do we get it at a discount?
We're buying our gasoline and diesel at the bulk. And as of last week, our price for diesel is $3.87. It's $3.32.
But at the pump, it's probably $3.80 something.
It's at $3.87.
So we're saving about 50-some cents.
We're saving about 55 cents in the diesel, and
gallon
we're buying
on diesel.
6 million gallons. That's about a savings of $3.3 million a year.
Okay.
And on gasoline, as of last week, we're paying $3.20 a gallon, while the station, they're paying $3.60 a gallon. That's a savings of 40 cents a gallon. And we're buying 3 million gallons a year. That's a savings of $2.9 million.
Okay, so the bottom line is we figured out a way to do the Costco version of how to get our fuel, right?
Yes.
We've actually are saving the public on average 40, 50, 60 cents a gallon, depending on how we can negotiate. So we actually negotiate big purchases of it so that when the gas prices go up or what have you, we can budget for that and make sure that we have the gasoline we need, the diesel fuel that we need, and all the other fuels. Even LNG, right? We don't buy LNG like somebody would buy it on the street. We buy our LNG at a rate that is in bulk, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so all of our fuel, the vast majority of our fuel is actually bought in bulk, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, good. And is that done? You stick your finger in there and say, I think we're going to buy 1 million gallons, or is that something that takes a lot of calculation, anticipation, and we have to figure out how much to buy?
We base our calculations on the prior year's usage.
Okay, but that's still not easy, right? You have to look at it and see how many units of vehicles you have, how much activity is going on. Was last year a crazy year that was very different than other years? It's not as simple as just saying, hey, Joe, can you just go ahead and purchase 3 million gallons? It's not that simple, correct?
That's correct, because we could not ascertain how the department uses the fuel. Just right now, because of the fire, our diesel usage for the month will certainly go up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So basically, there's a lot of analysis that goes into determining how much how much the cost of fuel is, and therefore how we budget for fuel. That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any parting shots, Mr. DeClue? I think this is probably going to be the last time we see you at this table.
It's always been a pleasure working with you and all the rest of the City Council. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, wonderful job.
Very articulate last words. Thank you. Appreciate that. With that, we will refer this back to Budget and Finance without objection. I'd like to call on Mr. Labange for a quick introduction. Mr.
Yeah, thank you
Labange.
very much. I just want to thank Tony DeClue. Tony, I was not here Friday. Thank you for your years of service to the city. Good retirement. Enjoy your surfing. Mr. President, members of the council, I have with me today our president of the St. Petersburg Sister City Committee here in Los Angeles, Olivia Grigorieva, who is here, and a special delegation is here. I'm going to ask her to introduce them on behalf of all of us.
Mr. President and members of the council, please allow me to introduce our delegation from St. Petersburg. We have Ms. Anna Mitanina, who's the honored lawyer of the Russian Federation. Mr. Peter Yakovlev, he's vice chairperson of City Property Management Committee for the city of St. Petersburg. Mr. Roman Filimonov, who's the chairman of the Construction Committee for the city of St. Petersburg. And then we have two delegates, Mr. Vasily Solovyov, he's a part of the Ministry of Education and Science of Russian Federation. And we have Alexander Zubkov, who's the chief editor of a newspaper, Maratha 27.
Olivia, thank you. Let's give a big welcome there. They're meeting with city officials in Los Angeles. We're the second largest city in the United States and the second largest city in Russia. We welcome you here in a great friendship. Thank you, Mr. President, members.
Thank you. Great to see our sister city here, and welcome. We hope you enjoy your stay here. Thank you very much. With that, let's go to the next item called special, please.
Item 11 called special by Councilmember Cardenas, and there are cards on that.
Okay. John Walsh is our speaker on item number 11.
Rule me out of order anytime you want. I love America, and I want these Russians from St. Petersburg to know what happens to people like me in your country. We're put up against a wall, and we're shot, and our children are murdered. That is what happens to people like me.
If you could address the council, please.
Now,
Mr.
I am
Walsh?
being heckled. I am probably being cut off when I say
You're not being
that
cut off,
Barack
but just
Obama
please.
and are in fact in bed. Listen, I don't like being heckled here. Mr. Murphy was in the Revolutionary War, and he was a disabled veteran. In the Revolutionary
Sir,
War.
we have before us right now Channel 36, so please, if you can discuss Channel 36, that is what's germane right now. Thank you.
Okay, I just want you to know.
Okay. That will close our comments on this item. Please, Mr. Cardenas wanted to speak on this one as well. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. If I could have Mr. Imperial come up.
Good morning, council members. William Imperial, Information Technology Agency.
Okay. Can you please explain to us briefly what this Fourth Amendment is about?
Yes, thank you. In regard to the city's funding of our educational channel, Channel 36, the City of Los Angeles has provided grant funding to that channel since 1996. This Fourth Amendment is pursuant to a 2005 contract for the grant funding of the educational channel of the LACTAC, Los Angeles, what do you call it, city, sorry, just escapes me right now, our educational channel. How's that?
So that's otherwise known to the general public as Channel 36, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Now, how did a Channel 36 even come about? Did some philanthropist pass away and just leave some money and bought a cable channel and donated it to the city? How did this come about?
Well, originally in 1984, Congress passed the amendments to the 1934 Telecommunications Bill, or Act, and allowed cities to negotiate with their local cable operators pursuant to their franchise agreements or local franchise agreements to establish public educational and governmental access. In 1987, the City of Los Angeles actually instituted that agreement with the cable operators pursuant to those local franchises to put into place public educational and governmental access. The city has a governmental channel that we're on right now, which is Channel 35, City View, and also put into place the educational channel, or LACTAC, at that time. Finally, it was established pursuant to those franchise agreements in around 1994 and came into being around 1995, if I may say that.
So the federal government passed legislation, then it became law. the cable companies at that time, primarily cable companies, I presume, actually had to negotiate with local organizations like the City of Los Angeles, City of San Diego, San Francisco, Houston, et cetera, around the country. And out of Los Angeles came a negotiation where Channel 36 was provided. And then I want you to go into the details of what it is to provide, because I think there's various levels of providing, because that's what's happening in January 1st of next year. There's going to be a disconnect between what's being provided and what's not. So in 1987, the City of Los Angeles commenced negotiation with the cable companies or concluded negotiations?
Concluded and enacted the ordinances that set up the local cable franchises. It remained in effect until 2006 under state law, but were actually sunsetted in 2008. There was a 2-year period there that the state had preempted and continues to preempt the local rights of the city to have the franchises controlled at the local level.
So in 1987, the cable companies were negotiating with the City of Los Angeles. But in 2006, then the cable companies went ahead and negotiated with the city or with the state of California?
Well, what happened in 2006, actually in 2005, is the telephone companies raised the issue of entry into all of the cities in the state of California, claiming that the local franchising process was a barrier to their easy entry into the city's rights-of-ways for operations of their soon planned to be at that time cable operations, cable TV operations. And the state legislature in 2006 passed, and the governor signed a bill allowing the local franchises to be preempted to the state. In 2007, the telephone companies were able to apply to the state and were granted local franchises, actually state franchises, that allow them to operate in our local rights-of-way. And in 2008, our local cable operators then became part of that process and are now franchised by the state. So the city no longer has its local franchising rights. They've been preempted.
So Channel 36 was brought into existence over previous negotiations with the City of Los Angeles. Now, the state of California, I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, Channel 36 is kind of floating there as to what the future structure and infrastructure of Channel 36 is going to be?
No, actually, what the legislation did is it allowed the cities or local public entities to continue with their operations and use of PEG access pursuant to federal law.
Yeah, but how was Channel 36 paid for in the past? And how would it potentially be paid for in the future?
It was paid through city funds. And at the inception, these channels, the PEG channels, were actually funded through negotiations with the cable operators. Additional monies were provided for capital expenses for the establishment of these channels, for the brick and mortar, as capital expenses are often called, and for equipment as well. But the actual operations were funded by, and continue to be funded by the city as to its governmental and educational channels that are interconnected in the city, that are citywide.
So this Channel 36, the item on the agenda today, basically has to do with the funding of this channel between, I guess, July 1st of this year, 2008, through June 30th of 2009?
That's correct. And under state law, we would continue to have that obligation if the council and the mayor so chose to continue with that
now,
obligation.
if the city of Los Angeles did not continue that obligation, Channel 36 is actually something that could be used by who if we just for some reason abandon the use of Channel 36?
If the city decides not to continue to fund Channel 36 and it would become defunct or not continue to operate, then that channel would revert to the use of the cable operators.
Which cable operators would it be this time?
In the city, it would primarily be Time Warner, and which makes up the majority of our cable structure, our TV systems, and Cox is a small part of that. Verizon and AT&T are beginning their operations in the city, but are not very large at this time. We also have Charter in a very small portion of the city.
So the bottom line is if the city of Los Angeles chose not to utilize Channel 36 anymore after this budget year, would that mean that the cable companies would be upset because we let that channel 36 go back to them, or would they be happy? And if they did get that channel, what would they do with it?
Well, they would probably be very happy, and they would probably take that channel and use it for commercial purposes. They could lease that channel for millions of dollars and make money.
So basically, the city of Los Angeles is in a position of doing two things. One, providing public access information through Channel 36, as they have been for years. And if we abandon that responsibility, then the private industry would go ahead and gobble up that channel and probably not use it for that and end up using it to make money.
That's correct.
Okay. Was the city of Los Angeles ever publicly, from a policy perspective, in favor of Channel 36 being utilized for its current purposes?
For educational access, yes. Of course. Of course.
And so we got the channel out of a negotiation. So that $1 million plus a year value of a channel ended up going to the city of Los Angeles. The city of Los Angeles has some kind of board or not-for-profit running it?
We have Black Tax Board. It's a nonprofit corporation that runs that, and the city just funds it. They basically deal with their operation support, and programming issues that also go on that channel are dealt with by that board.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
when the
Cardenas.
city got it for free, and the city, I thought I get 6 minutes as an
You do,
opening.
you have 5. You,
Oh, 5?
sorry. Sorry, you have 6. You're right. You have 30 more seconds. My mistake.
Okay. Now, so the bottom line is the city of Los Angeles was all in favor of public access publicly and as a policy matter, and forced cable companies to go ahead and have public access responsibilities and receive this channel and made sure that we funded it as well.
Yes.
But on January 1st of 2009, we're going to have to make a decision from this side of the table as to whether or not we're going to continue that for years to come, or maybe not.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, with all due respect, colleagues, I think it's important for us to realize that the debate is going to come to the floor of this council, and we need to either be truthful and honest with ourselves that when it's on our dime, the city's dime, we need to be committed to public access, because it's certainly easy for the city of Los Angeles, like we have in the past, when it's on somebody else's dime, demand that we have public access for our viewers and for our constituents. So I look forward to that debate, colleagues, and I hope that you side on the side of making sure that when it's on our dime, we figure out how to pay for it, because when it was somebody else's dime, we certainly were pretty self-righteous about them having to pay for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl is next, then Mr. Labange. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public access is a big deal. How do you see it happening after the end of the year?
Well, the Board of Information Technology Commissioners, the Municipal Access Policy Board, has issued its report. We've sent it on to council as well. Information technology is in support of the findings, recommendations in that report. Pursuant to that report, one of the options that we're supporting is that the cities support and maintain 4 interconnected city channels.
Please hold my time so I can hear his answers. Hold my time, thank you.
4 interconnected city channels. One public access channel is to be combined with the current Channel 36 for purposes of allowing the city to continue allowing for those two government channels, just so that we can put into place the continuation of Channel 35 as it now exists, and to have a billboard channel on the others. For the other channel, the second government channel, and also to have an educational channel that would be operated by another entity, probably UCLA, UCTV. And we intend to send this report on to council shortly through ITGS.
How about sending it out to the public, putting it on your website, let the public access producers see it? You know, I had 700 public access producers who produced 3,500 shows when I was a cable guy, okay? Are we going to create a studio, put the equipment in, give them access to a location? What about the public? There's about, I would say, 2,000 public access producers out there. What strategy do you have in place to give them a place to go and do their shows?
Thank you. We've actually, the Information Technology Agency has actually had all of this information about the changes in the laws for the last 2 years on our website. I know I manage and help maintain that website. And we've also provided information on a weekly, daily basis, the phone-in calls. We get many of the access producers to call us. In terms of what it is that we're proposing. If the city wants to make a determination, when I say the city council and mayor wants to make a determination that it should fund a public access studio, which are now controlled by Time Warner mainly, right, and will cease to exist on January 1st, 2009 because of the changes in the law, then that funding, which ITA just can't find the monies for at this particular time, needs to be approved by the council for us to look for those monies at that time, and the mayor as well, by the way.
You need a motion for me to say that?
Actually, we would like the report to come to council through ITGS, but if you'd like to make the motion, that would be fine.
Well, I don't want to see public access die. It's about to die. It's finished. It's a joke what they did in Sacramento. What about AT&T? Are they going to give us an analog channel, and will it be channel 35 and 36, or are they still playing their crazy game about putting it on a Barker channel or something?
They're still playing that crazy game. They're putting it on Channel 99.
Well, that's unacceptable. I'm the one who interconnected channel 35 and 36, so 750,000 people can see it. And AT&T and Verizon and any of these other folks who are going to get into the video business, who went up to Sacramento and had the law changed so there's no more franchises, there's no more accountability, our public customer service is gone, and our public access is gone, right?
Without any funding or law changes, yes. That's a good way to put
well,
it.
the people own the airwaves, not the cable companies, not the broadcasters, and this was an opportunity, First Amendment right, for people to do shows, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm angry about it. I got to tell you, I know what's going on up there. I know that whole business backwards and forwards. So we get a 1%. How much money is that?
It'd be $5 million in capital-only money.
Why capital only when they need it for video programming?
This goes back to the 1984 telecommunications changes in the bills, actually in the law that said that any funding that came through the cable operators, unless it was a side agreement, had to be for capital expenses only. So they gave us the money for capital support, but not for operations.
Okay, can we do something about that?
Well, if changes are made to state law, yes. There would have to be some kind of cutout or modification to the current law.
Back to AT&T. What do we do? Are they getting customers right now?
Yes, they are.
And they're doing it without giving it channel 35 and 36?
Yes, they are.
How did you let them do that?
Well, actually, the state law allows for them 90 days to put into effect the connection. And during the time that it's deemed technically infeasible for them to make the connection, which is what they're claiming right now.
What do you mean technically infeasible?
Well, that's the state law. That's the language in the state law.
Yeah, I know. The phone companies went up there and they muscled their way in and they took away public access. Well, look, don't smile over it. I'm very angry about this issue.
I'm not. I'm in agreement with you.
Okay. I look forward to it coming before the committee, and I look forward to this chambers be packed with 100 or 200 public access producers who will say the same thing I'm saying. It's outrageous that we're losing public access. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Labange.
I just know the people who participate in 36 and the people who watch it appreciate it. We're so glad that you're back. Call on me if I can help you do anything to help you reach more people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Mr. President, on item 7, there's a request to continue that entire matter for one day to tomorrow's meeting, October 15th.
Okay. Without objection, seeing none, we will continue that one day till tomorrow, the 15th of October. Next item, please.
Item 12, called special for cards, and a substitute motion on 12C has been circulated.
Okay. Arnold Sachs is our first speaker on 12. After that is John Walsh. And then we will go out to the Valley for Donna Pearman. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. As there are no religious leaders here to comment about the events being held on Sunday, and I specifically mention item O, the AIDS Walk on October 19th, which is on Sunday, which will interfere with the churches and synagogue attendance, as we so fervently heard here in council chambers as regards to the LA Marathon, where 6,000 to 10,000 people were put out because 4 church leaders came forward. Had nothing actually to do with the owner of the Dodgers taking over the marathon, but the fact that these 4 church leaders felt that these people, running the marathon on a Sunday would interfere with attendance to churches. So it beholds me to stand up for the religious leaders and say that having these events on Sundays and Saturdays would interfere with secular attendance. And we need to eliminate these events on Saturdays and Sundays, because if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And I'm sure that the council members can find their religious leaders to come forward and speak up on behalf of their secular congregations having the right to attend church and/or synagogues on Sundays and/or mosques on Sundays and Saturdays, and not have to worry about having interference from a special event being held on that particular day. Again, as I mentioned, the runners for the marathon, 6,000 to 10,000 people, put out, changed to a national holiday. Patriots Day. And also, Mr. President, if you don't mind, one real quick thing. Item number 7, amendment.
Sorry, sir.
When will the public be able to address that amendment?
Tomorrow. John Walsh is our next speaker. After that is Donna Pearman.
This money, I'm 1 minute of the 2 minutes I have left. HollywoodHighlands.com. The Irish people get $5,000 gift for their event, okay? That's my father's side. The Jewish people, Weiss, for the Sukkot holiday, only get $1,285. What's going on here? That's my mother's side. This is all, except for some things like community cleanup, things like that, these are all payoffs. That's all they are. You're talking about the AIDS fine, $22,000, that's PR. That's about disease. It's not about having a party, it's about disease. And anytime I say anything up here concerning Barack Obama and the mayor...
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Our next speaker is Donna Pearman out in Van Nuys. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Anyway, I would have spoke on that last one if I knew the Channel 35 was going to be discussed. So let's keep public access. Anyway, if I didn't make it clear, we need a green grass, Mr. Rosendahl, and City Council. Certainly, the small lawns won't use that much money. So go after the big places. Don't go after the small family lawns. Anyway, so it was a thrill to hear Governor Schwarzenegger talk about our abusive fee waivers. We can't let everyone party on our dime. Then we got the Cherry Blossom Festival, $5,000. Young Neck Presbyterian Church, $3,500. Be Natural Health Week, $4,000. Blessed Sacrament, Carnival, $5,023. Our Lady of Holy Rosary Church, $8,717. Irish Rest for $5,000, and I agree that I don't understand why the sukkah was so small, and that was over several days, being 1,000. A little over at 1,000. So that was wrong. They should have more for that, if you're going to have it being fair like the rest of them. AIDS Walk, 22,000. Let's 652. Let's find another avenue so somebody else can pay for that. We can't keep on waiving all these fees. We are on economic strait with our cutbacks coming back and all fees going up, and our city council won't stop waiving fees. We don't have enough for the homeless, and you've helped cause it. So stop waiving these fees. And let's not have events on Saturdays. That would be wrong for the Jews. And Fridays are for the Muslims, because they go to the mosque on Friday. Okay, thank you.
That'll close our public comment on this item. If we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 14, called special for cards.
Arnold Sachs is our first speaker, then John Walsh. All right, Mr. Sachs is left. John Walsh, you have 1 minute, sir.
This money, it's much too much money. I want for every single one of these, I want you
Sir?
to break down.
We don't allow placards to be put up because it can block people's view. You can just put that down. Thank you, sir. You can.
Harass me. Okay, am I okay? You want to jack me up? Holly Cross Festival, I want to know a breakdown on where this money is going, where these thousands of dollars are going. And I don't have...
Sir, we had a card in for number 14. It might have been in error. Yeah, I think you're talking about 13, and 14 is a property at 1016 West Lighton Avenue.
About that property also, we don't have the Enterprise Home Partners. We don't know what's going on. We have no idea what the issue is. It's a giveaway. And I just want you to know that every blog in America is going to know that when I started talking about Barack Obama and the mayor, you cut me off.
He is, again, off topic.
Sir, I wasn't even in the chair when you started that. Thank you. All right, if we can please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Next order of business, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Cardenas, your request to be excused to leave at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, October 28th for city business. That meets council policy.
All right, that excuse is granted.
And Councilmember Parks, request to be excused Wednesday, October 22nd for city business. That also meets council policy.
All right, he is excused.
Desk is clear.
All right, do we have any announcements, folks? Any announcements, business announcements? Do we have a adjourning motion or business announcement?
We had a request for Rule 16 on a motion today for directing the Environmental Affairs to represent the city at a hearing October 21st before the county board on items.
Okay. Do you mean you have a Rule 23 or is it a Rule 16?
20 for today.
For today, Rule 23. Okay. Has that been circulated? We have a special one.
Yeah.
Why don't you read what your special one is into the record?
Basically, Environmental Affairs Department was directed by the council to evaluate a community standard district report several weeks ago in which they represented the city. We've just been made aware that on October 21st, the Board of Supervisors will be receiving the final community standards document, and it's important for Environmental Affairs to represent the city both with a written and verbal report to give the position of what the final report reflects.
Okay. Let's go ahead then on the findings. If you would like to make the findings, Mr. Parks, about how this came to us.
This came to us through a document that came Friday last week that said this report was now going to be scheduled for October 21st. It was our first awareness of the date that the Board of Supervisors was going to hear the final report.
Okay. Anybody else on the findings? If not, let's go ahead. That was since the posting of the agenda. Please open the roll on the findings, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is now before us. Mr. Parks has read that. If we can make sure that gets circulated, please. Let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All right, that is approved. And if we will next go to adjourning motions. Do folks have adjourning motions today? If I can please ask everybody to rise in council chambers for our adjourning motions. Mr. LaBonge.
Two people. I'm going to ask maybe if someone else would lead. Want to adjourn in memory of Dorothy Green.
Yep.
Dorothy Green. Okay.
We have, yeah.
Okay,
I think
good.
a number of members will speak on Dorothy Green. Why don't you start, and then we'll all add.
I'll speak later on that. But members, I spoke earlier. John McGrath was 55 years old and lived a life that was cut too short by criminals. The Los Angeles Police Department is investigating that case. His sister Susan is here. She spoke earlier to that. As I said, he was born and raised at Highland Park. Worked as a young man at the Ambassador Hotel, which he was much loved as a doorman. Later on in life, he did have some challenges where he fell out and lived on the street. During his time on the street, he lived in the 6th and Vermont area and unfortunately was a victim of crime there. He moved up to the 3rd Street area where he lived in somewhat of a continuity with the community and was loved by many people. Tragically, last Thursday evening, someone committed a crime against him that took his life. John was 55. He was much loved. There was over 100 candles on the sidewalk. I was there this morning, and the faces of Los Angeles were all reading those in multiple languages that described how John was. This city council stands in adjournment in memory of John McGrath, and also asks all who may know anything about this terrible tragedy to come forward to the Los Angeles Police Department. All members, thank you, Ms. Hahn.
Thank you very much. On Dorothy Green, do you want to begin then, Mr. Rosendahl?
If I could have the honor to start it off.
Sure.
Dorothy Green was the founder of Heal the Bay. She passed away Monday at the age of 79. There was a beautiful story in the Times today about her. Green was the daughter of Polish immigrants, was born in Detroit on March 16, 1929. She graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in music in 1951. The same year she married her husband, Jacob. He joined her family's construction business from 1955 to 1960. The couple worked together in Desert Hot Springs, building and later operating a motel and water system. Green became a warrior for clean water in 1985 after hearing how her brother had been spattered with barely treated sewage from an open drain at Bayona Creek in Marina del Rey. Soon after the incident, Green huddled in her living room with a group of like-minded activists and formed Heal the Bay. And you know, Heal the Bay is a positive word. Heal the Bay, which we all know has become a leader in a fight for clean air and protects local coastal waters. In fact, every year they do a report card to let us know how we're doing or how we're not doing. One of the largest nonprofit environmental groups in Los Angeles with 15,000 members. It is known for its annual beach report card on water quality at California beaches. Dorothy is survived by her sons Joshua of Brentwood, Amram of Phoenix, Herschel of Diamond Bar, and brothers Morris Cohen of Los Angeles, Gerald Cohen of Westwood, and 3 grandchildren. And we saw her last op-ed piece last week on the environment. Many of us got to know her over the years. I had the privilege of knowing her for a good 20 years and watching the show we had her on, and of course the guy who runs it now, who's been running it all the time, Mark Gold, got his energy from her and stayed close with her. We all have benefited by her passing through our lives, and may she rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, Ms. Perry, Mr. Lubange. We'll just come around. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I stand in honor of Dorothy Green. How appropriate her name is. Her sense of compassion for the environment was incredible. Back in 2001, I had the privilege of meeting her and discussed with her this notion of a Alley River master plan. And she was so overjoyed, but she spoke to the integrity of our waterway systems. She wanted to address the issues of the watershed, and I had to humbly remind her that this was just the spine of a whole watershed issue. And the watershed itself requires millions and millions of dollars of more studies so we can make the kinds of improvements it needs. And it was Dorothy Green who brought that to light. And when we first saw the master plan, I must say that she wasn't too happy. She did see it and said, we need more green space. We need more natural habitats. We need more ecosystems that are natural to the river. And all I can tell her is we're doing everything we can to reach that high priority, but it was her tenacity that really is pushing us to a place that we hopefully can fulfill in honor of her life. May God rest her soul.
Thank you. Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope that Dorothy Green is remembered as a woman who is a mother to a movement, a teacher, and a mentor. And I remember when I first ran for office, she was one of the go-to people if you were considering a career in public service, so that you could just reap the benefit of her vast knowledge and her body of work, which was tremendous. And I only hope that people who listen are able to achieve half as much as she did with their lives. She lived out her beliefs and did it in a gracious and intelligent way that probably has changed our city and maybe even our country for our lifetime too. So that's the gift that she gave us, and I hope that we never forget her.
Thank you. Mr. Labange?
Members, so many years, many of us had a chance to know her. When Mr. Bradley appointed her to the Water Power Commission, which was a very radical thing for the mayor to do, because she was suing the city and the Hyperion and all the work and change and all. They looked at everything there. But the thing that I love most about her, that she had joy in her face, that she believed in her heart what she was doing was absolutely right for so many. From the simple aspect of people who swim in Santa Monica Bay, to connect the storm drains to the fact that the pollution there shouldn't be there, and then also our very own Hyperion treatment plant, which was changed drastically from the pressure that she was able to muster through others. I love the fact, Ed, that she got involved with the Los Angeles River and the Los Angeles and San Gabriel River watershed and really connected metropolitan Los Angeles and the east side of Los Angeles. Very few activists sometimes from the west side of Los Angeles go east. And Dorothy went all the way east and up into the mountains where the water starts in the San Gabriels and cared deeply about all the watershed here. She truly was a remarkable Angelino who really affected and changed. When they write histories of this city, they will talk about Dorothy Green in the way that she changed the city's thinking and also made people understand and heal the Bay. Her services are Thursday at 2 p.m. at Mount Sinai in the Hollywood Hills, adjacent to Forest Lawn next to Griffith Park. Dorothy Green was a great American, was a great real environmentalist, but a great lover of people who cared about the children who are going to be swimming in the Bay in the years to come.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you. I, too, met Dorothy a long time ago when we were trying to save a wildlife area, actually, now in Mr. Cardenas' district there, and there was concern about using potable water to preserve it, and she was a huge advocate. Over the years, she was the go-to person, I think, as Jan Perry mentioned. She was the mother and grandmother and really an individual who cared about the details. You know, Ed, when you told that story, she didn't just talk up here. She read everything. And if you've ever seen her book that she has, which was an incredible book about, the environment, I saw her a couple times, but the one time we actually got to sit down and talk was at a friend of mine's bat mitzvah, and it was an amazing, and you could tell she was not doing well, but she made every effort to be there, and she was there for the future of this city and starting Heal the Bay. It is an organization that will live a long time to ensure that we are all held accountable in what we're doing, and she was a delightful person. And when you first met her, you also thought, oh, she's a soft-spoken kind of woman, but oh no, she had a power about her. And so we have lost, I'll steal a line from you, Mr. Labange, an angel in the City of Angels on the issue of the environment, but most of all a good friend to many of us. She was an advocate and a real star here in the City of Los Angeles. She'll be sorely missed.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl, and just beautifully said by all my colleagues. And she was somebody who changed the culture of City Hall, which is a tough thing to do. I think we wouldn't be where we are today with our approach to water and sanitation of not fighting, but actually going forward. And I was going to mention that, Mr. Labange, that Ms. Perry and I went to her first as the first signatory for Proposition O when we had the crazy idea of a clean water bond, and we said instead of fighting cleaning up our water, it was time for us to go to the voters and see if they wouldn't pass something. And she was huge in that campaign. And as Mr. Reyes pointed out, she wouldn't settle for 95% right. She wanted 100% on everything. And to have that standard really did change the culture of our department, the culture of the city council, to a point where we still have a lot of cities out there fighting these mandates from the federal government. But here in Los Angeles, we've taken a different approach. And that really is the legacy for generations to come of Dorothy Green. Yeah, Mr. Rosendahl?
Point. In lieu of flowers, they made it very clear, write a check to Heal the Bay and continue the progress that the organization has made.
Thank you. Do we have any other adjourning motions today? Mr. Rosendahl and then Mr.
Yes, Jesse Bujanda passed away last Friday, October 10th. She was just about 85 years old. She was the mother of Della Jimenez, who works in my office and is one of the main players in the office. And she spent the last 10 years in a wheelchair due to a massive stroke. Jessie was a loving mother and grandmother, a jolly woman. She will remain in the hearts of her family forever. Jessie is survived by her husband, 5 daughters, 3 sons, 24 grandchildren, 37 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great-granddaughter. May she rest in peace. And special prayers for Della, who is obviously heartbroken by the loss of her mother. The family is in a healing process right now, and the services will be on Thursday. May she rest in peace.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Passed away September 24th, Amelia Stephen Makingo, born February 7th, 1921 in Campbell, Ohio. Been a resident of West Hills for 49 years, loving wife for 62 years, mother, grandmother, sister, friend, and confidant to all. Amelia and her husband, Stephen, traveled extensively, visiting every single state in the country, parts of Canada, Mexico, enjoyed quilting for children and many members of the community. Also a charter member of the San Fernando Valley Quilt Association, member of the Canoga Women's Club for more than 25 years, and retired after 20 years from the Los Angeles Unified School District. Survived by her loving husband, Stephen, daughters, Joan, Ann, Jean, and Margaret, son, Thomas. Also leaves many grandchildren. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Mr. Clerk, if you please call the roll. We'll next be in session tomorrow. That is Wednesday, October 15th, 2008. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. Mr. Rosendahl?
My prayers, and I know all of our prayers are with the firefighters and the families being impacted by the fire. My seatmate, Greg Smith, is right there on the firing line, as is Richard Alarcon, and we wish everybody well and get the fire out.
Thank you very much. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.